Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be installing the Larue MBT meticulously built trigger. It's made out of S7 tool steel, and you can look up at the side of all the specs. Chances are if you're here, you've already researched the trigger. You just want to know how to install it and do it the right way. We're going to do that today. There's a 10-step process for doing that on the Larue instruction manual. Nobody likes to read these, so I'm going to do it in video form for you guys and show you step by step with visual aids of exactly how to install it to ensure that you can get it put in the right way. We'll then do a function check when we're done with that. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. Let's look at the tools. What you're probably going to need is a small hammer, a screwdriver, and this is going to depend on what type of screw you've got holding your pistol grip on. For me, I've got an Allen head, and I think this one's 5/32, so I've got a bit for that. You might have a flat tip. In that case, a flat tip screwdriver will work fine. Some sort of a punch. I'm using just a standard punch here, but if you've got a Glock tool, a Glock disassembly tool, those actually work great. And you're going to need a little bit of grease. Funny enough, this is a Geisley grease that comes with their trigger, but you can use whatever type of grease you prefer. A bearing grease would probably be another good option. Let's go ahead and check the chamber and make sure the chamber is empty, which it is. I'm going to remove the sling from the rifle. And I'm going to remove the upper from the lower. We're just going to push out the push pins. We can take our completed upper and we can set it aside. We're not going to need it anymore today. Now that we've got that done, we've got to pull the fire control group out of the lower. We're going to start by releasing the hammer slowly. So we're going to move it to the fire position. We're going to hold the hammer and depress the trigger and let the hammer fall slowly to the front. Okay. We're going to open up our pistol grip, access the pistol grip screw, and we're going to go ahead and remove that. Now, inside this pistol grip, on the right side of the weapon, we're going to have a detent and spring that may be under a little bit of pressure, so don't lose those when you go to do this job. Okay, so there's our spring. We don't want to lose that. There's our grip screw, our grip. There's a detent. This sometimes gets stuck up in here. That's okay. There it goes. Don't lose that part. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and remove the selector. If you've got a standard mil-spec trigger group, you can go ahead and remove the hammer at this point, but this is a aftermarket hammer trigger assembly that's stays retained together once they're removed, and you'll see that in just a minute. But either way, the process is the same. If you've got a standard selector, it'll just pull straight out from this side at this point. But this is an ambi selector, so we're going to have to remove this Allen bolt so that this side of the selector can come off and then the selector can come off. So we're going to go ahead and find the appropriate size Allen bit for that and pull it out. Go ahead and take the fire control group out. Just going to knock these two pins out. If you've got a standard trigger group at this point, when you remove this punch, the hammer will actually come out. It's under a little bit of spring pressure. It's not going to happen with this fire control group because this is an aftermarket fire control group. Everything remains with retention together. You'll see that in just a minute. Go ahead and knock out the trigger pin. Okay. Okay, so at this point we're just going to remove the selector and the fire control group. And you can see that's a TACCON 3MR. That all comes out as one piece, but if you've got a standard trigger group, this will come out, the hammer and trigger assembly will come out separately. Now I've got it stripped down to just bare lower receiver, and we're ready to put the new trigger group in. Okay, let's open up our MBT. We end up with the hammer. The hammer's already got the hammer spring installed. Got our trigger assembly. It's going to come with 2 springs. We're going to go with the one that came on it, and that's already installed. Those are easy enough to take off and put back on if it's not installed. It goes on just like so. Those little feet forward. Got to have a pin for the trigger. The pin for the hammer is already in here. Man, that is on there. We're going to start out by installing the trigger. That'll drop in just like so. Before we do this, we're going to go ahead and grease these contact points. It'll show us on the instruction manual the different points to add grease to. So I'm going to start out with our Geisley grease, but you can use whatever kind of grease that you want. Now I'm going to use a little flat tip screwdriver. You can use whatever. So all of these contact points, these little hooks, going to get a little bit of grease on the underside. See, it doesn't take much grease. I'm going to catch the back side of the hammer too. And this can be greased from time to time while it's inside the rifle if you need to. So go ahead and drop it in, making sure the feet of those springs are forward. That's good. I'll look in the hole and line up the hole for the pin. You can use your, if you need to use your punch for alignment, you can do that. Going to go ahead and drop in the pin. It's not a bad idea to put a little oil on these also, whatever type of gun oil you use, before they go in. That went in well. We're now going to go ahead and put the hammer in. Make sure the spring is assembled just like so. And it goes, these legs go on top of the trigger pin. You're going to have to work this in. If you've done a few, it's pretty easy. If you haven't, it's not. This is again where your punch comes into place because it's going to be under spring pressure as you go to install it in. Okay, that's how it's going to look. We'll take our hammer pin, and we're going to work our hammer pin in. Again, if you keep your punch halfway in the hammer, it'll really help you to get it started. Because if these holes aren't lined up perfectly, it won't go in, and you should not be using a hammer to get these in. Okay, got it started in now. We're just going to push it the rest of the way through. Push it the rest of the way through. You can use something to lightly tap it with, like wooden hammer. Shouldn't take much force. That looks good. Let's just seat it down. All right, perfect. You'll kind of feel that snap into place. At this point, Larue says go ahead and test out the function of the trigger and the hammer without the selector. Make sure everything's working. So just like before, we're going to hold our hammer. I'm going to depress the trigger, let it down forward. That feels like it's catching and it's working good. At this point, we're going to go ahead and put our new selector in. We're going with a regular style selector this time. I'll take a little grease while I'm at it. I'm going to grease that detent hole. Just help it slide off and on safe a little bit better, especially if you're using a newer parts kit. All right, there we go. That looks good. Okay, now I have to put everything back together in reverse order. So we've got our selector detent, pistol grip, our detent spring, once we get this started on, make sure that spring lines up with the detent hole, just like that. Okay. Now we're ready for our grip screw. If you're using a standard grip, this may have a lock washer with it. Be careful not to cross thread here. Just tighten it up nice and tight. Okay, everything's assembled, we hope correctly. Let's put the rifle together and do a function check. We'll take our upper, snap it right back onto the lower. That's good. Okay, so we're going to put the weapon on safe, charge it. Of course, making sure the chamber's empty, which we've already done. And we're going to try to fire it. Should not fire. Nope, safety's working. We're now going to move it to fire. Pull the trigger. We should hear it click. Okay. Let's charge it again. Depress the trigger. Hold the trigger to the rear. Going to charge it again. Release the trigger until the sear resets. And pull it again. Hear that hammer fall. Okay, so it seems to be passing our function check. Everything looks good. So we can go ahead and charge it. Put it on safe. Check that safety again. Safety's still good. We're going to call this good. Now it's time, guys. Head off to the range and do an actual check on it. Make sure we don't have any issues. Everything's working well, but I don't expect we'll have any problems with it. It looks good to me. And, well, thanks for viewing. I hope this helped you guys out. That was the install of the Larue MBT. And happy shooting.